blubber across the ice sheet to
Yeah.
to a bunch of lazy people who like
Yeah.
won't leave their house
That
for weeks at a time
overeat 500 pounds
and
and
order
don't want to
DoorDash
go.
and
I guess, yeah, that's very true. They're like, oh, like I understand. Let's breed these wolves so that we can make a dog that hunts bears. And
Mhm,
that's like that bear hunting dog in England. Like they packs of three can take down a full grown bear.
mhm,
That's insane. Like bears are scary.
mhm.
Like there's that jujitsu meme. What would you do if you were in? I'd use jujitsu
Oh,
against this
yeah.
bear, and then like he's like, I would shoot for a double, sneak around to the back, and choke him out. And then he's like, then I'd wake up after being mauled almost to death. It's like, yeah, bears are scary, even small bears.
Oh yeah.
Like,
We had seen some pretty we'd seen quite a few bears in the summer. Like I was up north. Travis already knows this, but I was up in northern BC working for a horseback hunting outfit just south of the Yukon border and ultra remote, like fly in only. It's about an hour and a half flight from the closest highway. But you're, a couple hours flight at least from the closest town and just remote mountains in northern Canada. And yeah, like we saw some crazy stuff. Like we saw a bear take down um, uh, an elk. We had a bear follow us when we were coming back from hunting one day. Or sorry, we were accidentally following it, and the horses were acting super weird. And then we turned some lights on because you're not supposed to use lights when you're riding horses because it messes up the
yeah.
vision. And but the horses were acting super weird, so we turned a light on. And there's a bear like 20 feet in front of us on the trail, like a big grizzly bear. Um,
Horses
and
are smart, man.
dude, horses are awesome.
I
I love
love
horses.
horses. Horses, I grew up with them,
Yeah.
and they know way before you.
Oh yeah.
They're like a dog,
A giant
but a
dog with hard
giant dog.
feet.
Yeah, and they see almost everything.
Hmm.
They hear everything. They smell everything.
Yeah.
They know what's going on way before you will ever.
Oh yeah.
Humans are really useless.
Mhm.
Like the only thing that we have is we built tools.
I think part of that is the way we live right now. I mean, obviously, like I don't know. I feel nothing like the lockdown or the pandemic has made me want to move. I already did. Like I always had this like idea. I remember when I moved from Ontario to Alberta, probably the last movie I watched and definitely the last book I read before I moved out here was Into the Wild. And I thought
Uh,
I was going to come out here and fucking live off the land and sleep in a tent for like years at a time, which obviously is not the case. But definitely the pandemic makes me want to move as far away from anywhere else as possible. Like,
100%. I was actually introduced to that movie by a friend of mine, or a friend of ours, Georgie.
oh yeah,
But
yeah. When?
uh, I didn't watch it until like this past year.
I was gonna say,
I know it's weird, and I'm actually kind of glad because if I would have watched that right out of high school,
yeah,
I wouldn't have went to college.
yeah.
I would have been that guy. I was like, man, that was probably the trajectory. Like I had two paths, and it was like go to college
Hmm.
or become like some kind of bearded hermit somewhere in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I was like, let's play with the college idea because none of my family ever went to college. So I was like, yeah, let's do that.
Hmm.
Whereas I have had like weird bearded hermits in my family tree. So I was like, I don't want to be like them. But yeah, if I would have watched that
Hmm.
way back then, I think my life would have turned out vastly different.
Yeah.
Like, cause that movie inspired me. I was like, man,
It's a pretty badass movie. It's a badass story.
it's an amazing story.
Just with the poor planning involved in being a whatever he was, 20-year-old kid or 21-year-old kid.
Well, and he had no survival skills really,
No.
other than his little notebook.
Yeah.
Like, it reminds me of like we read a book and it was based on a true story. Hatchet.
I haven't
You
heard of
read
it.
that? It
No.
was a plane that went down in somewhere in the woods, somewhere like either Canada or the States, but like somewhere like remote.
Yeah.
It was just this little like small engine plane that went
Hmm.
down, and he was the only survivor of it.
Yeah.
And all he had was like his clothes and a hatchet. And the plane went down in like a pond, like a lake, a
Hmm.
small lake.
Hmm.
So yeah, all he had was a hatchet
Hmm.
that his father like gave him, and for some reason he somehow had it. And that's all he had. So the book's Hatchet, and it was actually kind of a cool little story.
Yeah.
And then when you dig into it, it's like, oh, you went through a lot of shit,
Yeah.
like a lot more than that book could ever describe.
I'll tell you what, after my summer, anybody who tells me they want to move into the bush and do things by themselves has no fucking clue what they're talking about.
Oh,
Like the way we were living in the summer was, I mean, there's definitely some luxurious aspects to it in terms of like being so remote and still having access to satellite internet on occasion when you're in the main camp. But when you're not in the main camp, I mean, you need the horses to haul your gear. You need to go get water from the river. Sometimes the river is low. Sometimes the river is too high that you can't leave wherever you are. Sometimes you don't see any animals for 2 weeks at a time, and then all of a sudden you see 100 elk like coming over a hill. It's just so unpredictable that that yeah, I mean it's a very romantic idea to want to do that, but it's not a realistic one for most people. Sorry, I keep thinking I hear a voice out there.
no, no one's out there. It's a romantic idea for sure, and like I've thought about it over and over and over. One of the things that stops me is I'm a pussy. I would just like I like to think I'm a pretty good woodsman, and I would make my way through it, but I'd be like 5 days, I'd be hungry, and I'd be like, okay, well, this didn't work.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure I could do quite a bit. I've grown up that way, and I
Hmm.
grew up on a farm, not a good like, not a rich farm. We
Yeah.
were a poor, poor, poor farm. And I grew up on it, and you learn a lot of stuff. You learn how to hunt. You learn how
Yeah.
to do all this stuff. But yeah, going out into the woods and
It's funny. I mean, it's almost the way I think about it is how badly do I want to do that versus how badly do I want to get away from reality, quote unquote. Reality being like 9 to 5, whatever lifestyle, not even 9 to 5, just like the lifestyle that we all live,
you know,
cars, houses, stuff like that. Um, but I definitely, the older I get, the more I'm inclined to want to do it.
I think if you went out with a group, like if you did the whole thing, like you ever watch M Night Shyamalan's The Village?
No.
So I'm not gonna spoil it, but they're in this village, and it's like really remote,
Yeah.
and you know M Night Shyamalan, he always has a twist.
Hmm.
But it's just this little remote village of
Hmm.
like good friends that started it.
Yeah.
And it's like, huh, I know like three people that I would do that with.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, there's like, I mean, there's like that Dick Proenneke documentary, or not even a documentary, it's like a self documentary. It's called Alone in the Wilderness or Alone in the Wild, something like that. But it's on YouTube, but it's this old guy who like back in the day, I'm assuming it was in like the 70s, he left his like life, hiked into the bushes in Alaska, and like he documented himself. This isn't like a new thing.
oh yeah,
It's like an old video, right? It's like
yeah, yeah.
he filmed it on a potato, and he
Carter's phone.
yeah, and he like he filmed himself like making spoons and knives with his axe, and then he filmed himself cutting logs and then stacking the logs and drying them and cutting. You know what I mean? Like so. He films himself doing everything. I could see myself trying something like that, but the main it's hard. You almost have to like in order to be it in a weird way. And I mean, obviously you can do it in a dirtbag way, but in a weird way, you almost need to be affluent, quote unquote, or I don't want to use the term wealthy, but you need to have some sort of backing in order to be able to do it because I mean, now you can't just like go into the bushes and start shooting animals and smoking meat on your own and like no one's gonna bother you. Like eventually someone's gonna the some parks guy is gonna fly over in a helicopter and be like, "What the fuck's going on down there?"
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's kind of like the funny like aspect of van life. Okay, we live in for anybody who's we live in the fucking capital of van life hashtag.
Fan community.
Oh, it is hilarious because half of them are just like grungy dudes from Quebec living in a GMC Safari with like a dirty mattress in the back and some Rubbermaid bins. And then the other half of them are like extremely wealthy, like doctors and business owners and lawyers who've bought $100,000 or $120,000 Mercedes Sprinter and then
Mm.
paid somebody another $100,000 to deck it out. And it's just like it's just hilarious seeing the like disparity between the two demographics who like live the van life thing.
Yeah.
But it made me think of that when we were thinking about like building a cabin in the bushes. I'm just like, it's almost the same.
You definitely need something. Because to go out and, like, on the farm when one of our houses actually burnt down, but we were building a log house. Like a big ass log house.
hmm
That is a lot of work.
hmm
Those are heavy.
Oh
That's,
yeah.
like, that. And, like, we didn't even do it. It was like a prefab kind of log house, but they just delivered it,
hmm
and then we had to make it.
Yeah.
Like, from ground up. Like, we poured the foundation, got all that fun stuff. But that's a lot of work with prefab.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine going out, somehow drilling holes, or making your own sort of nails, like the wooden nails that they make, like those spikes.
hmm
That's a lot of work.
hmm
And we only have realistically like what 6-7 months that you could actually build.
Yeah.
The rest you're surviving because it's too damn cold to do anything.
Totally.
You could like I think about living on my own out in the wilderness or whatever it is, and it's some place that doesn't get winter.
hmm
Then when I think about winter, I'm like, no, I'm good with living in my condo because
Yeah,
that
exactly.
would suck.
Totally.
Hawaii. I could definitely live out in the woods in Hawaii because that it never changes. It's between 20 and 30.
Yeah.
Oh, and it rains.
hmm
That sounds terrible. Rain. I love rain, so that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it's not snowing.
Yeah. I know. It is brutal. It's funny, my mom and sister like continually try to convince me to come down to Costa Rica. And I mean, there's definitely an aspect of interest there because it's like, oh, it's a warm climate. I can go surfing all the time. I just don't like the whole like beach lifestyle. Like I like doing stuff. I like a schedule too. Like I don't like just people not showing up for stuff when they, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. But um what was it? Yeah, I was talking to my mom the other day. She's like, "Oh, I got out of bed and there was a scorpion there," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good with winter."
I guess yeah. That's the upside. You don't generally get
Like
like
scorpions and killer
yeah.
spiders.
You're looking a little bit more into that. And you're like, oh man, Australia, they get some sweet temperatures. Oh, but you
Yeah,
shake your boots out every time you put them on because there's deadly everything there. That's insane.
yeah. I
I
remember
got
the first time I went down there, I went to go lift the toilet seat up so I could take a crap, and there was like a giant frog inside the toilet bowl, and I was like, "What do I do with you? Like, do I crap on you? Do I flush you first?" Um, I can't remember what we did. I think we like took like a piece of wood and like propped him up on the piece of wood and then threw him outside. But then after literally the same crap, I finished and I reach ahead of me because there's a cupboard in front of me to go grab the toilet paper roll and I pick up the toilet paper roll and there's a scorpion like right behind it, which is just like okay, I'm already empty, but like
yeah,
I would have
can't
crapped
scare
myself
the
if
crap
there's
out of
exactly.
you. Yeah.
And I remember like the same trip when I was there because I've been there a few times, but the same trip like they had an outdoor shower, so like you just walk around the side of the house and there's like a tile shower. It's really cool. But I had like shampoo in my face and stuff, and I'm like scrubbing my face, blah blah blah, and I'm like, fuck, something feels weird on my leg. So I like wash my face off and look down, and there's a snake wrapped like halfway around my calf. Dude, I was like, ah! like, fucking, like kick the snake halfway back to Canada.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm good with like big predators.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
totally,
I'm
totally.
surprisingly okay with like bears. Like I've had bears stalk me, and I've had bears like I woke up one time I was camping with my father, and there was a bear sniffing his face as he was like passed out. And I woke up, I was like, huh. I like look over, I was like, and I froze for a second. And I was like, then I started screaming because that's what you do. You try to scare it away from you, and then if it attacks, then you ball
hmm
up because it was just it was a black bear, I think.
Yeah,
But I was just a little kid. And I was just like, oh, well, this is what I was told. So I started screaming and kind of ran, waving my hands at it. And
Hmm.